When I was a kid, there were 3 games that made playing the Commodore 64 the best game system in the entire universe. There was Datasoft's Bruce Lee, where you played as Bruce and snagged the lanterns, kicked bad guys, and, well, I really don't know what the point was because I never ended up finishing the game. There was Mark Tramel's Toy Bazaar, which was another favorite. You basically run around a toy store, protecting the place from toy robots. It was a hell of a game, and what you would expect from a game published by Activision. Now, H.E.R.O was my all-time favorite Commodore game. It looked and played fantastic. It was leagues beyond what I could play on my Odyssey 2. I also liked Commodore Strip Poker, but at age 9 I had a hard time beating the computer and seeing some pixelated cleavage. I had no idea that H.E.R.O was first released on the Atari 2600, as I never owned that system. When I got back into retro gaming, I finally found a copy at Too Many Games, though it was $35. I can usually find 2600 games for $1 or $2, so $45 was a little steep. I haggled, got a good price, and acquired a H.E.R.O of my own. The game has you control Roderick H.E.R.O, and his moves are pretty outstanding. Roderick has laser beams that come from his laser helmet. He has dynamite, which can blow up walls, even lava walls, and he has a helicopter pack that allows him to fly through the air. The goal of the game is to save miners who are trapped. Basically, you start off at the beginning of a level with full power for your helicopter pack and a limited amount of dynamite. You enter the cave from the top and you fly down. The laser beams can kill spiders, bats, and whatever stands in your way. Except, well, there's this creepy hand that pops out, but I don't think you can kill that. So starting at the top of the maze, you make your way down to the bottom. And at first, the levels are pretty simple. But as you go further in the game, the mazes get harder and the enemies get faster. One touch from a creature and you're dead. Too close to the dynamite? Dead. Too close to a lava wall? Dead. The game really needs precision. And that is what I love about this game, because the controls are smooth. It is almost unbelievable that this game was made for the Atari 2600. It looks, sounds, and plays better than any other 2600 game out there. While graphically the 2600 version is perhaps inferior to the Commodore 64 version, the controls are tight, perhaps even tighter. I can't believe what you are able to accomplish in this game. There's also lanterns that light up the caves. If you touch the lantern, it goes out. The cave goes dark. You can kind of see the enemies still, but it makes traversing the levels just a bit harder. As you make it further into levels, you need to use your dynamite wisely. You blow up too many walls getting to the bottom, and you may find yourself unable to explore further. The 2600 game has about 20 levels. After you finish the 20th level, the levels then start repeating. I've personally never made it that far. I can't believe how many Atari 2600 top 25 lists I've read that don't even have H.E.R.O on it. Most lists have Pitfall as the #1 game, and I'm not taking away from Pitfall. H.E.R.O and Pitfall are both great games from Activision, but Pitfall is the console's second best game. For those who leave H.E.R.O off a top 25 list, well, that is an individual who has never played H.E.R.O on the VCS. H.E.R.O, hands down, is the best game for the system. I recently reached out to H.E.R.O's creator and programmer John Van Ryzen to ask him if he wanted to talk some H.E.R.O, and he did, so that was totally awesome. Now, John started making games in the early 80s and continued to make games for platforms like the Commodore 64, NES, SNES, PlayStation, many other systems, and still makes games today for mobile devices. I asked John where the idea for H.E.R.O came from. John had been visiting Howe Caverns in New York State. It is a cave that has an underground river. He said it seemed like an interesting environment for a game. John loved superheroes as a kid, so he started with that, coming up with a protagonist who would rescue miners. He figured he could make the character fly, gave him laser-powered eyes and dynamite. John then made easier and harder levels for the player to progress through. While the H.E.R.O game was all Van Ryzen, it was Activision's marketing department that named the game and the character. Since Activision had such high standards for game visuals, sounds, and play, Van Ryzen found that he could take as long as he needed to complete the game. He had no deadlines. The hardest part for John was the complex coding to make objects multicolored, not flicker, and fit in the 2 to 4K byte cartridges. On H.E.R.O, he spent a lot of time tweaking the play controls and level progression to make it fun. He said he spent less time on graphics and more on play. He would watch his colleagues play the game and make adjustments based on what he saw. When released, H.E.R.O reached number 7 in the bestseller charts for the Atari 2600, and that was very enjoyable for John, since his previous game design attempt was a big failure. But since H.E.R.O came out during the video game crash of the 80s, it may not have done as well as it could have. It was rated as high as Pitfall in user testing, it just came out at the wrong time. A sequel was never entertained because by then, Activision no longer wanted to develop games. It was thought that video games were a fad that died, like hula hoops. John said that's amusing when you think about today. Activision soon had layoffs and restructuring. It was a very stressful time. During that period, Nintendo, EA, and others came in and ended the video game business crash, making high-quality games that kids wanted to buy again. John finished by saying that he wanted to do a H.E.R.O sequel, but the video game business crash did not make that likely. All of the ports, like the one I played on the Commodore 64, were done by outside vendors, though John was allowed to give them feedback. He said that play-wise, H.E.R.O still seems solid. He also thinks it would be fun to make a modern 3D version of the game. Activision did it with Pitfall, and they contacted Van Ryzen about doing it with H.E.R.O, but then it was never pursued. The interview finished with John saying, "Maybe I could convince Activision to sell me the rights to a sequel. A H.E.R.O sequel? 30 plus years later? That is something that I could really get behind." Special thanks to John Van Ryzen for taking the time to answer a geeky guy's questions. The complete print interview will soon be in the description below should you want to read. Thank you for tuning in for this review of H.E.R.O for the Atari 2600. Please subscribe.
Yeah, we need to do.
This is Irish Rican for 2 Guys, 1 Review, and I'll catch you next game.